What's up?
Hey, hey, we
Where
are back.
where are you? I Are we in the same house?
No, we're not actually. We
Oh,
are.
that's right.
No, yeah, we're in the same house.
Yeah.
We're gonna do one. We're gonna do one at a different table with us together at some point. At least I hope so. Um, Let me see what's happening here. We get some things going. Um, yeah, tonight we are talking about how we were parented, and I guess in how we parented our own children, but how we were ourselves parented. And of course, we want whoever's watching. We'll say this. I think we have a few people on, but we want you to engage and please provide some questions or make some statements because it's not the be all end all. But I think in order to, as we talk about finding us, right, before any of us find ourselves, or it's really healthy for us to acknowledge, you know, um, our own history and how we were parented. So we do have Akeen on. Akeen Johnson is on. Hey, Akeen, we're going to overlay the comments in a little bit, uh, but we just wanted to kind of introduce a few things. So, but what did you want? Did you want to add something, Kendra, on this? Because I think you had some of these discussions in some other groups, and I think it's really healthy as well.
Well, I think to start out and ground the new year and think about going forward in our future, you also cannot discount the past because where we are now in our present is a result of a culmination of experiences, journeys, but also our ancestries, right? How we were raised, how through lineage, traditions, customs, sayings, the way we move have been passed down. And I think uniquely because we are African American and you have are Afro Caribbean, there are lots of factors that make up who we are, how we parent, how we marry, how we live life. And so we want to take this time to give, maybe it's not enough due time, but a portion of the time to really reach back into our histories and bring forward the stories that have been told to us, the lessons that we've learned, some of the guidance we've been given, how we've used them, how we've not used them, and then how does that impact where we go as a family, as a couple, as individuals, in really the second half of our life, since you are over 50.
That's true,
Hmm.
right? And so, I couldn't agree with you more on that. Since we're both over 50 right now.
No, I'm not over 50. I am 50. You're
Well,
over.
actually, once you pass the day of, you become over. You're like
No, you're
50 years
50
old
for
in a few
1 year.
days.
You're 50 for 1 year.
Okay, okay. Well, we'll go from there. But you got your AARP card first, just for the record.
Because I was smart enough to understand that I can get some serious deals while you were waiting 2 years. What is it now? 3 years, four
I
years? Wait,
was
you're
in
58?
denial. I was
Yeah.
in
Right.
denial.
Hmm.
I
Whatever.
maintain. Hey,
Hmm.
but so of course, we're going to tackle these questions, these thoughts and things, but we have some administrative things to get out of the way as well,
Like
right?
what?
So and while we're taking care of the administrative things, right? Because again, we do want to have engagement from the people who are out there. I think we got about 5 folks or so. Um, we did promise the folks that we were going to have a gingerbread
Oh,
contest.
you're gonna bring this up, but go
I,
ahead. Sure, go for it.
I am going to bring this up because
Hurry up because we only have 25 minutes.
we need the people to vote. So even if you're watching this as a recording, right? Um, and you're getting your questions going. I want y'all to comment because we will see the comments even after this. So for what it's worth, right now we're just going to go over, what was prepared by both of us. Okay, and I want each of you to vote. So here we go. Kendra's gingerbread house, by the way, y'all should know because our sound is going to be off. Kendra's house is going to be on the right, and mine is on the left with the characters. So here y'all go, and y'all can have this for commentary later. All right. So if y'all could vote on that, that would be fantastic.
Mine was most creative because it took very little effort and there were no rules. So there was a ginger in the bread house. Thank you very much. And so all I had to do was put some white bread and put a ginger bottle inside. Oh, Akeem
Oh, we
said he
couldn't
couldn't
see them.
see them.
You know what? For those who couldn't see that, I am going to post the gingerbread houses. It's going to be a separate post, and y'all comment on them.
Sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Just
let's.
pick me. Thank you. That's how it goes. Great. All right. So they
Um,
didn't see anything. Oh, that's great. That's even better. So all they saw was words.
all
Jason, you
right.
got to get tight with your
You know
producing
what?
here.
Please.
Okay, you got to get tight with the producing. So can I start us off really
Yes. Let's start this. Start us off, and
with some words of wisdom that I heard most recently, and this came as a result of a gathering that I hold monthly with some of my sisters, and my mother was one of the speakers, and something profound happened at that Sister Saturday, and that is the idea of being raised versus being loved. And so I'll share a little bit about how my mother and father raised us. And I do believe that my mother raised us. So here is the difference we were able to understand based on the conversation. And that is that when you're raised, you are raised with love, but you really learn what it means to be responsible, to be accountable, to learn how to be a human being, a decent human being, how to make mistakes, how to get back up, how to receive support and love, how to give it. And when you're loved, things are done for you. Things are um, created so that you don't have to feel some of the effects of life. And at some point, that could shelter a person and their growth can be stymied. So, that is the difference between raised and loved. And in my experience, being raised, and I'm going to use that term, my brother and I were raised by my mother, who definitely modeled respect, accountability, good work ethic, pride in who we were as black kids, as black people, the ability to advocate for ourselves, to learn how to articulate our feelings, our desires, our outcomes, take risks, all those things. And we failed and we got back up and we failed and we got back out because that's what you how you learn. But my mother definitely raised us. And what she shared, not to take her story, was that in some parts of our family, there were many people who were loved and not raised. And the results of that were people who were very dependent on those who loved them, in some cases, loved them to death, versus those who were treated by being raised, who then are able to have their own functioning, successful, thriving families, even in the face of hardships, they're able to stand again. So just wanted to share a little bit about that conversation as it pertains to some of the things that we learned from our parents. What about you, Jason?
well, yeah, and that's you, and that's why I think it's really healthy for us to think about this and to talk about this. I would say that I was raised as well. I mean, but um, I was given a lot of freedom growing up, and my parents divorced when I was 10 years old, 10 or 11, and that greatly affected me. Um, but I was given a lot of freedom. I was driving at the age of 12, 13 years old, like on the street driving. And Akin is on. Akin is one of our guests tonight. One of Not one of our guests, but one of our viewers, and and he knows I used to drive to church to meet with him. And so, but having been in or coming up in the broken household, if you will, it made me just realize a number of things just about my own parents. And and while I had a lot of freedom, I certainly didn't give that same level of freedom to our own children. But nevertheless, the way I was raised definitely affected how I in turn raised our kids, how I engaged them. And there were certain things that I definitely did not bring over from the way my mother raised me and stepfather, and there are other things that I did. And so, and these are all things that we have to address within ourselves before we start to really find ourselves. And again, some of it is, there are some scars that many of us have from growing up being raised by our parents. And that's not to vilify our parents in any way. uh, it's really just to say that, as a parent, now, and I'll give an example. Parents cannot tell, like my parents could not tell me at 10 years old exactly why they were divorcing. They give you the candy coated version. And so, because as a child, you just have no perspective. But it's not until my parents were, both of them, on their last weeks of life, that I was able to have conversations with them, and I was in my 30s or early 40s, and really understand what that past was about. And I think that was very healthy for me to move on from what I thought I understood as a child.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we are learning as parents, as a husband and wife, is a different form of communication than previous generations. I would say that in my family, sometimes people just didn't talk about certain things, right? You
Right.
just didn't bring up what was wrong with Uncle such and such, or you didn't talk about what could be ailing grandma such and such, or that's not part of the conversation that needs to be had. And I would say that my mother definitely broke the cycle of that communication by being very open with my brother and I about things that we can feel comfortable talking to her about: love, sex, disappointment, school. I mean, I could talk to her about anything. And what she's not going to be is a friend, right? She's going to be a parent to me. She's going to listen, or she did listen. She offered her wisdom, but in the end said, what is it that you need and should do? Right. And she let me grapple with certain things. My mother did not come in and sweep and solve the issue. She was like, I will support you, but she always wanted to listen for from my brother and I what we were going to do next. And I don't think that was happening across the board in my family. Even today, when we have
Mm-mm.
conversations with our older generation, there's still conversation that seem to be stuck. Like it's almost like this barrier of emotions that get blocked. And for me, being married to you and having children, watching that, just because I was loved in that way, didn't mean that some of that behavior didn't infiltrate into the way that I was going to approach relationships. And so I'm constantly trying to work on better ways of communicating, showing affection, being open with conversations. And I see that we have these conversations with both Julian and Justice, more openly. And I would love to, as they get older, they're deeper and richer conversations because they are really going into adulthood and making some additional decisions that will impact their lives. However, I do think, breaking that vicious cycle, also the cycle of asking for help, but also being accountable. So there's one thing to ask for help, there's another thing to be a leech, right? And be dependent. And the other part to it is, how do you do it because it's the right thing to do in the goodness of your heart, but at the same time teach people how to, get on their feet, like teach them how to fish versus
I'm sorry.
catching the fish.
Did you say you know?
No, I didn't.
Yes, you
I,
did.
I, I yeah. And if I did,
Yeah.
it really was, do you know, Jason? Do you know? As I have about 15,
We're gonna review
Yeah,
the tape. I'm gonna
we
throw the
will.
flag.
Yeah, and I know that I have missed a few.
No, I totally agree with you. But I guess you have to look at the time that we were being raised, and then of course our own parents. So
Hmm.
let's, we have to you count that one.
Yeah, I will.
You. So by the way, for everybody watching, apparently I've been saying a lot, and that's it
You
is
just
what
said
it
it
is.
again.
Well, I said it because I was anyway.
You said it again.
So our parents raised us for the time that we were in, and we try to raise for our kids for the time that they were in, understanding our own history. And I think what many times is missed, and I'm going to just it up right now.
Hmm.
What's missed many times is we ignore the time that we were being raised in, or the time that we're our own times as we've come up. And I think once you understand the time and the why, that helps people, that should help all of us understand what was going on in that time and why people behaved in that time. It took my mother, her final months, I had all these questions for years. And as a child, you'll say this: why don't you just, and this is what Justice used to say all the time, why don't y'all just do this? Or why don't y'all just do that? And it's not always that simple. But nevertheless, the impact is on us. And I'll ask the question, and this is for the people who are listening, right? If you said in the 1970s that I wanted to be president of the United States, a lot of people would have thought you were crazy,
Except Shirley Chisholm.
except Shirley Chisholm. But
So not everybody was
no, no, no.
crazy.
But what I'm getting at is that so many people, and I've heard this over and over again. When you finish high school, you go to college, you get yourself a job, and keep your head down. You don't, you don't do anything. You know, that's where people were, and
Hmm.
you can understand that. But now this generation is more like, no, I'm going to do it the way I want to do it, and I don't care what they think. I don't care what people.
Yeah, and
So
can I
it's
challenge?
different.
Can I not challenge, but let me add to why that may be. And that is because the ancestors paved the way. That is because of what's been put in
Yes,
motion that's allowing the current generation to be more bold, especially some of our black, Latinx, indigenous kids to be more bold because the
absolutely.
generations before them have laid the foundation. Technology has changed. So, yeah, I agree with you that the time or context has a lot to do with it. And yet, I also challenge us to think about just the common things or themes that need to be had to have thriving, healthy relationships. Communicate, open communication, giving the why. So when Justice says, why don't y'all just do this? Instead of going, stay out of grown folks' business, which used to be the term always used, you stay out of grown folks' business, or because I said so, or sit your narrow ass down, blah, blah, blah. We can actually answer the question, this is why. Or be honest, I have a gut feeling. I can't tell you or articulate to you exactly why, but right now I'm not feeling like we need to move forward with that. So, for sure, the context does matter. And I do think for us to move on as a couple, to really take those lessons, the things that were seen and the things that were learned, good or bad, to really shape how we are going to leave a legacy for Julian and Justice, for our peers and their families, for our cousins, to be able to know that they really do need to be heard. We really do need to explain some of the why. We need to share that certain things were done a specific way in order for them to have the courage they have now to go, I'm just going to do it, or to take the risks that they take now. But to say that that wasn't happening at another time, I think we could have the same conversation in 1980 under the crack epidemic, the AIDS epidemic, and people were doing radical things then that were pushing the boundaries. But that was on, the backs and the shoulders of the generations in the 70s, 60s, and 50s. So, I think we can have this conversation in 2055, if I'm still here, 2055, and continue to go, now this generation is learning this. And that is what I think for us moving forward this year. I'm making some more conscientious efforts to really go back and learn more of my history. A quick anecdote, this is a little funny, but it's uh, part of the reason why I'm kind of looking back. So I purchased a book over the Christmas holiday, which my mother loves the books that I buy. And so she's like, "Ooh, let me see that."
Mhm.
She took the book and read it. It's Barracoon by Zora Neale Hurston, and it's about Africa Town, which is the last known group of African enslaved Africans who were brought to Alabama. And I didn't even know about this book, but I watched the film The Descendants on Netflix just during my downtime. I know that sounds weird, but that's my downtime. I'm searching for historical movies or literature just to ground myself, and also to make myself whole, really understand like, wow, I am here because of these individuals. And so just spending time reading, being grounded into my history, really unlearning all of the negative narrative that has been out there about Black people, and really understanding not just the pain, but the triumph in the face of such great challenges. And I think that also are the lessons that are helping me think about the current state and how we push through and how we continue to parent our kids, our grown kids, because you never stop parenting, right? You're always, the way they see us is different, right? And the way that we interact with them is a little different. But being grounded in my own history, my own development, is going to help me be a better person, help me be a better wife and a better mother.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, listen, it helps me be a better husband to know the past. It helps me to be a better person and be a better example. I I look at Julian and Justice, and I think everybody who has kids, looks at their children and they want their children to be better than them, and we have to prepare them to be better than us. We have to prepare. You can't just say to your children, just be a doctor or a lawyer anymore. And I believe, and I think our kids would, our sons, I don't want to call them kids, I believe our sons would agree with this, that we have backed their their passions more than directed them, right? Like our
Sure.
parents, like not so much our parents, but like parents used to do, back in the day. So Julian was this creative head, and I made sure that he had cameras or whatever when he was 10, 11, 12 years old. And look where he is today. Justice, the same thing. When he was 12 years old, I got him a busted motorcycle, a dirt bike, so that he could take it apart and play with it and really see if that was something that he liked to do. And he went to robotics. So those are things that you and I had agreed upon, Kendra, before they were even here, that we were going to make this a joint effort, which I think is also different. Our sons have a different or had a different childhood than we had in the way of our parents being together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So so there's something to be said for that. And again, it's not to vilify parents who've gotten divorced or whatever. This is not to do that. But it does shape a brain. It does shape an experience for a child. And I know for me, it made me want to just totally commit. As much as look, we've gotten on each other's nerves many a times. And who wouldn't? I mean, that's just the way it is. But I know I made that promise. Like, I'm not gonna let another man or let my wife, as God, as long as I'm here, raise our sons by herself or with somebody else. That was
Mm-hmm.
that was not in the program for me.
Well, I think it's important for them to see what a partnership looks like so all the ins and outs of it, right? The challenges of partnership, the joy of it, the ability for us to morph, and they seen us grow as a couple, so that they can look at relationships in a way. We had this conversation over vacation about them in future relationships, right? And one son talked about just not ready to get married yet. Like, they're thinking about how that takes energy and time, right? And so they want to do that right. And so when they're ready, versus rushing into a relationship for the sake of a relationship. I also think too that for both Julian and Justice and how we have raised them, we also thought about ways to help them be better people. So instead of focusing on what do you want to be when you grow up, even though that's the question you ask, it's who are you going to be when you get older? Are you going to be someone who has good character? And I'm using that in air quotes because I don't want it to sound like dominant culture character, but are you going to be just a human being who's kind? Are you going to, help someone when you see that they need help? Are you going to give of yourself? Are you going to pray for people? Are you going to pray for yourself? Are you, going to respect your elders in a way that honors what they've done for you? So all of those things, in addition to whatever careers they have, we want our kids, our sons, to be really good human beings. And that's still a work in progress considering their age, right? And all the influences around them. And for us to stand with them and continue to model, take from what we've learned from our elders and use that as stepping stones really will help, I think, move us forward and move us forward as a family.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I will say that we're at 29 minutes and we haven't had any questions come up, but apparently the chat overlay, I don't know if Restream did something different here, but the chat overlay was not
Okay.
taking for some reason. Maybe it's something that has to start at the beginning. So if anybody has any questions or any statements that they'd like to share, that would be great. We would welcome those.
Yeah. Any
This is
questions?
yeah, this is an important part to, going to the next phase. And what we're going to talk, and I should talk about what we're going to discuss on our next episode really right now, if that would be helpful. I put something out on Facebook, and it was something that Barbara Walters said before she had passed. She had made a statement in an interview, and it had to do with not giving, knowing how to cater to your personal life. And so many times we do so much for others, for our children, for our parents, for friends, for other family members, for our jobs, and we forget ourselves. But in order for I wanted this particular episode to be a precursor to that as we go forward, because in order for you to find yourself and to serve yourself and to really be a better person for yourself, you got to understand your past, and you got to also come to grips with how you were raised or how you were loved, and then how you move forward to really do for yourself.
Well, you have to heal yourself. I mean, it's that analogy of in an airplane when the masks come down, you put your mask on first before helping someone else. You can't help someone else if you're damaged, if you're unwell. In the last episode, we talked about well-being, and we talked about the different facets of well-being, and we said we're going to lean into that. And one of the things we had left that episode talking about was one of our goals for this year, which was taking a trip once a month. So just please to let everyone know, we've picked our location. We're going to Fort
Yes.
Lauderdale, right? But January. Now, it's not that we haven't been there before, but it's just a nice getaway, kind of close, some sun in January, an opportunity for us to find ourselves in a different way. And then what we're going to do after is pick where we're going to go in February and March. But we made that promise to ourselves. And there's a question that came out about how has spirituality helped you navigate your life? Everything that we are do is grounded in God, grounded in our ancestors, grounded in our deep faith and belief that we are here for a purpose, and that purpose is what we continue to seek, right? And each time we get closer and closer to that purpose. I would say that the one thing that I would say about spirituality is that for me, it is this pull. I grew up Catholic in the Catholic Church and Black Catholic Church, in fact. So it was very different when I went to a non-Black Catholic church and what the feeling was. But there's something about Black spirituality that is really deep in this pulling this pull or this energy to people and to the earth. I can't, it's almost indescribable, but you know the feeling when it comes over you. And for me, that pulling is how I get from being in a state of fear to bravery and courageousness. It's that point where I take the leap. When I'm in fear and when I'm in doubt, the only way for me to get out, even with people like with encouragement, is is faith, is a deep spiritual pulling that helps me get over that hump. And I know, Jason, for you, you have really stepped into your spirit most recently, and you engage in some practices that help keep you grounded.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really been I've been spiritually engaged for a long time. And I have to give Akeem, credit for this as well, because when I was, younger, I was very depressed when my parents divorced, and so I had come through that phase really needing to be grounded in faith, and by the grace of God, I've been able to go to school, get scholarships, and do things my mother nor my father were pushing me to go to school. In fact, they were just like, look, once you graduate high school, you're on your own. And so, fortunately, I had the right people put into my life, including you, Kendra. We met in 1985, 86. And that was around the time when I was really coming out of, I would say, a depressing time in my life. And it didn't end there, but I was still going through things. And for sure, yeah, it, coming up, what I've seen, what I've experienced, and how I've come through those experiences, I can't be anything less than spiritual
Hmm.
and have a spirituality. In fact, we replaced the sign, but the sign read, "Faith is daring the soul to go beyond the eye can see, which the eye
Hmm.
can see." And in finding us, we in finding ourselves, and that's not just me and you, Kendra. That's everybody who watches this. Is you have to dare your soul to go beyond what you see. It may not be logical what's being asked of you in your mind and your conscience, but go do that. If there's if you believe that you could sing and you just never did it before, go do it.
Hmm.
You may fail miserably. You may meet someone who goes, "I can help you be better than you ever thought you could be," in that moment. And that's when you start, when those things happen, that's when you start to say to yourself, there is a greater power. There is a spirit. There are spirits around me who are helping me. And so as long as you tap into that and know that they're good spirits, then you will be fine.
And before we go, so one of the things that I have incorporated in this year is I have a journal, right? And it's a little God time for women, and it is a journal slash calendar. And every day I put my to-do list down there, but it also forces me to answer the question or finish the statement, the things that I'm thankful for, and who I'm going to put on my prayer list. And that helps me start my day. In fact, I'm starting my workday an hour early so that I can start with this book, start with my being grateful, and starting with my prayer list. And it holds me accountable to do that every single day. So while I might not be a church going person, still trying to find that church here in Georgia, I do lean on the energy of the ancestors, the energy of spirits of God to guide how I'm leading my life, to help me answer questions, to help me grapple with challenges and fears, and to push me in faith. So hopefully that answers the question that was asked. Thank you very much. We are a little over, but does anyone have more questions? Because basically after this, I'm gonna go watch the basketball game.
Hey, and speaking of just sports, let's all just put a prayer out for Brother Hamlin on Buffalo Bills, who got resuscitated twice. Demar, oh my gosh. So everybody, we look at incidents like that, and I think it kind of forces us to stop and just take a step back and breathe a little bit and go, hmm, you know, what are these folks doing to themselves on the field, with every hit? And so
And also just a reminder that regardless of what your age is, life can be taken quickly. And so the perspective from what we saw and what you can hold on to, right? Every moment counts, every moment matters. And so make the best of those moments. Even when you did win the gingerbread contest, that's a moment that matters.
it is. I didn't know I won, by the way.
No, you didn't.
I didn't know I won. I think
Yes,
she just
please post that.
acknowledged it, everyone.
No, didn't acknowledge that at all. So get
Please
ready to
watch,
post that.
please take a look at the pictures. But we try to make this 30 minutes. And of course, we want to have more engagement, and we hope that you enjoy what we're talking about. And even if the topic changes next week, ask another question. We will be better about promoting at least 24 hours in advance so that you can prepare your schedules. But we are going to do this on Thursdays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to get better as we go. One thing we did, folks, is that we just did it. We didn't have everything perfect. We didn't have and there's still a lot of little kinks that we're working out on this end. but we're doing it. So we want to be here for you, and we hope that we look forward to everybody's support, but we want your engagement as well. So that's very important to us and to everybody who joins us, even if you watch this as a recording, which you can do. So with that, I'll end it unless you have something else to say.
Mm-mm. Happy New Year to all of you. May you
Yes.
be healthy and prosperous, however you want to decide to, how you just define prosperous and success. May all of those come to fruition for you. So thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next Thursday. Well,
Yes.
I'll be highlighting my new book coming out. Comes out this month.
Shameless plugs.
No, no shameless. I was told there was nothing to be
That's
shameless
right.
about. So happy New Year to all of you. Mwah.
Happy New Year, y'all.
Jason, move away from the couch. I got my spot for the basketball game.
Oh, Shab,
All
lady.
right, beat it.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.